What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. This definitely is not going to be a happy episode of Joe Winko Talk. This is going to be a morbid and gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk, and it's going to be a tad bit personal because I'm going to be talking about myself a tad bit in this episode. And if you know someone who was affected by this is a tragedy that recently happened a few weeks ago. I recommend you don't watch this video because it might trigger you and might upset you. But basically this video is just going to be of me sharing my thoughts on something really bad that happened and letting you know exactly what I was thinking about this whole thing that happened, this disaster that happened, because that's exactly what it is. And I'm pretty sure you guys probably all heard of this by now, but it occurred on June 24th around 1 a.m. This high-rise apartment building in Miami, Florida collapsed. It's the Surfside apartment building in Miami, Florida. It ended up collapsing, and let me show you guys a picture of it right here. So there's a before and after picture. The building actually partially collapsed, but they ended up demolishing the part that was still standing. And so far, 97 people are deceased, and 19 people are still missing and unaccounted for. Those are all people who are believed to be inside the building. It's really tragic and really sad. I actually have footage of the building collapsing right here. This was captured by a security camera from a neighboring apartment, and let me show it to you guys right now. 3, 2, 1, now. Oh gosh. Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, it's actually collapsing in slow motion. I had to slow it down because it happened really fast. So that's exactly what happened to it. This happened at 1 a.m. around a time when everyone was at home and around a time when everyone was asleep. So obviously, the moment I saw that video, I knew that it was really bad, exactly what happened, especially since it happened at 1 a.m. while everyone is usually home at that time. And there were a lot of people in that building when that actually happened. And the news was saying that they're investigating the cause of what caused that building to collapse. Because clearly you don't see like any explosions or anything like that, but it's pretty obvious to anyone who watches that video exactly why that building collapsed. And right away, this is what I thought of. Now, this is where it gets personal, and this is just what I thought of when I saw that. I don't really like to talk about this very often, but everyone who meets me eventually finds this out. I actually can't hold a job at all. I mean, I tried having one before, but it didn't go well at all. And it's mainly because of my autism and ADHD and a few other conditions that I suffer from that I don't really feel comfortable discussing right now. And back when I was 17, in year 2013, my adoptive mom made me get a job working retail, and she said, you have to work this job, you can't quit at all. And it was the worst thing ever. I could not do it. I mean, I would show up to work, I mean, as often as possible, I mean, but like, the way I did that job, I was not a good worker, and Like, the people who I worked with, they never had a problem with me because they all kind of knew that I had issues and everything, and they understood that. But my managers and everything, they they were actually really nice and really polite. But if I gosh, if I had $1 for every single time they would try to talk me into quitting, oh gosh, I wish. And I couldn't quit at all, even though I really wanted to, because I hated that job. But eventually I did. It was from 2013 to 2015. I mean, I was even asking my managers to cut my hours very low because I could not stand working that job. But my stupid adoptive mom made me keep it and everything. And I eventually did quit the job. I explained that in a whole different episode of Joe Winko Talk, and a lot of bad stuff happened when I did, but eventually it all got resolved. I really don't like to admit that about myself, but that's just something I had to say in this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Yeah, I can't hold a job at all. That's why I'm not living in a high-rise apartment building in Miami, Florida, and that's why I'm still here with my adoptive dad's brothers, who I hate with a passion, but luckily they keep their distance from me. And now that I think of it that way, that makes it even more ironic, but I honestly would never want to live in Miami anyway, really. I always preferred Ocala, Florida instead, but we're getting off topic. Another thing that I wanted to throw in, even if I was still working that retail job that my adoptive mom made me keep for 2 years, there's no way in hell I would have been able to afford to live in a high rise apartment on the beach on the ocean in Miami. But that's a whole nother topic that we're not going to get into. Just wanted to make that clear though. The point I'm trying to make is I was not good at that job because it was stressful, I did not like it, and there's a lot of stuff that I carelessly goofed up on during that job. And the first thing I thought of when I heard the story about the Miami building collapsing, the first thing I thought of was, imagine if that would have been my job instead, constructing buildings and making sure buildings are constructed right. And I was thinking about all the careless mistakes that I made while working retail, like really careless mistakes. And I was imagine if someone had that same, was like that while building a condo building in Florida and was making a bunch of careless mistakes. And it got pretty disturbing when I thought of it that way, really. And another thing I thought of was, thank God my adoptive mom didn't make me get a job like that, because that building was built by construction workers, and usually construction work is an extremely stressful job. I mean, anyone can get it, as far as I'm aware. Like, you don't need college degrees or anything like that. But construction work is an extremely difficult job. And a lot of times, construction workers are underpaid. And when workers are underpaid, they tend to not be so passionate about their job that they're working. And they tend to goof up a lot, really, especially if they don't like the job in the first place. And it's just really haunting thinking about that, really, and it's really sad too. But then more information came out about this building and exactly what happened and everything. Apparently the building itself had structural damage, and it wasn't quite the construction workers' fault. It was the people in charge of what goes on in that building and what and who manages that building. I remember reading and hearing this online that they did a report on that building in 2018 that said there was structural damage and that it would be really expensive for them to repair it, but it needed to be repaired. But they kind of held off on that from what I read, they kind of held off on that, and we ended up with this tragedy that killed 97 people so far. It's honestly really sad that this happened, that that building came down and that so many people died in the collapse, because home is where you're supposed to feel safe at, really. But then just the thought that your own home can collapse like that and you can die in it like that, it's horrible, really. And honestly, very disturbing. So apparently, obviously, I already know that a bunch of lawsuits are going to be rolling in because of what happened with that building. But I highly doubt that they're not going to track down every construction worker who built that building and try suing them, because, as I said earlier, construction workers are really underpaid and they're poor, so they don't have much money, and you can't get blood out of a stone. But the people who owned that building, seems like they're going to be in a lot of trouble. But I'm curious to exactly how this is all going to, exactly who's going to get in trouble for that building collapse, really. I mean, even though it wasn't intentional, someone's definitely going to get sued for that, but I'm just not exactly sure who is going to be held liable for it. Other stuff has happened like this before. I mean, I read online that other buildings and structures have collapsed. There was a really bad one that occurred at a hotel in Kansas City, Missouri back in 1981, and that's worthy of a whole new episode of Joe Winko Talk, really. And it's disturbing because this one seems like it almost has, that it might actually end up having a higher death toll than the structural collapse that occurred at the hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, because 114 people died during that collapse. But for this one, there's 97 people who have died so far, and 19 of them are still missing. So that would make it 100 and... Sorry, I'm kind of bad at math. 116. So yeah, the death toll from this actually would be higher. Overall, it's really disturbing and really sad. And it freaks me out even more because that building, that wasn't a building that they house poor people in. It definitely wasn't. It was right by the beach. I mean, if it was a building that they house poor people in, I mean, I would still think it was horrible, but I wouldn't be surprised at all, really, because people never really care about poor people at all. But the fact that that building was actually a place where rich people live and where the elites live, or whatever you want to call them, and the fact that they didn't pay enough attention to that building and it just came down like that, that's really disturbing, because it just goes to show you that no matter what status you're at, you're not safe from stuff like this. Things can still go wrong. And it's kind of the same with what happened in Kansas City, Missouri, because that was at like a luxury hotel, and you wouldn't expect like a horrible collapse to occur at a luxury apartment or a luxury hotel, but they still happened anyway. And it's chilling, really, because if it can occur, if it can happen in a place like that, then it literally can happen anywhere. And that's what's so scary about what happened here. And that's basically all I have to say for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. I wanted to talk about this because it happened in my state, and it kind of freaked me out when I saw it on the news. And I wanted to share with you guys what goes on inside my head when I hear about this story and when I read about this story. And yeah, I hope it didn't upset anyone, but I did mention earlier, if you knew anyone who was in that building, or if you were personally affected by this, don't watch this video, because it might trigger some bad thoughts. But That was just my input on what happened. I think it's horrible what happened. I feel sorry for all those people. I feel sorry that they lost their home and everything that they have. And I really hope that it all gets resolved for them. And the sad thing is, a lot of people lost family members and friends who lived in that building who will never come back. And it's horrible. But I really hope that this incident, really hope people learn from what happened here and that something like this doesn't happen again. And it's really sad, honestly. So, did any of you guys hear about this? What did you guys think about this, and what information do you know about the building collapse? Make sure to type about it in the comments, and what did you think of what I said about it, and did it make sense to you guys? Because the whole point of all my YouTube videos is to start a conversation with you guys, really. I haven't really posted a YouTube video in a while because I've been feeling kind of out of it for some reason. I still kind of feel out of it right now. But this topic was really morbid and really gloomy and really sad. And I feel sorry for everyone who was affected by this. So let me know what you think in the comments, and let's get a conversation started about this. What do you think should happen? Who do you think is at fault for what occurred in this building? What do you think caused this building to collapse? And what lessons should we all learn from this building collapse too? And what did you think about what I said in this episode of Joe Winko Talk? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.